That was great.
All right, so here I am with James, and we're going to talk about some a project actually in the Philippines, and we're going to go through that. But just before we started recording, James and I were talking, and James is 28, and I reminded him that when I started, the idea of bringing back the Ottawa Senators, bidding for a National Hockey League expansion franchise, I was 37. I reminded him, and he knew it anyway, of course, that Mark Zuckerberg was probably 20 when he started Facebook when he was at Harvard. So whether you're 20 or 28 or 36 or 37, whatever, young people can do great things, and so I wouldn't be intimidated at all. But tell me, James, we're going to record this. It'll go on YouTube, as I said, unlisted. You'll have the link, and I'll have the link. Why the Philippines?
So I'm what's considered a natural-born Filipino. My mom is from there, and that actually allows me to buy land in the Philippines. They're quite smart about how they approach foreigners buying up their land. As you know, as an example, in Jamaica, only 1% of the beaches are accessible to to actual locals. And there's a huge tourist boom going on right now, specifically on the island of Palawan, which is where we're looking at this property. Just to put some numbers in, the amount of tourists in 2011 to Palawan was about 40,000 in a year. So far in Q1 of this year, we're up to almost 300,000.
Wow.
Expected to hit over 400,000 this year. And you could compare the tourism in the Philippines kind of to Thailand in the late 90s, early 2000s. I'm sure you're familiar. Same goes with Bali.
Yeah.
The area that we're looking at is very close to recent UNESCO World Heritage Sites. There's underground rivers. There's beaches rated among the top 5 in all of the world, close by. And it's a wonderful community. Everybody there speaks English. So the Philippines is rated #1 in Asia of English-speaking countries. And there's going to be a huge onset of digital nomads moving there. So one of the biggest drawbacks to the Philippines for digital nomads was internet speeds. And it was plagued with some of the slowest internet speeds in the world. But as of February this year, Starlink is now available.
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, Elon Musk is one of the richest people on the planet. And, SpaceX has been phenomenal. Tesla, Solar City. I mean, he's done so many incredible things, the Boring Company. But I suspect that it might be Starlink that is the biggest of all of them.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree. I am, yeah.
I mean, it certainly helps to own a few rockets that can get your Starlink satellites up into orbit. But Starlink internet, I think, people talk about Steve Jobs, who really was the co-founder of Apple and did some wonderful things really while he was with us. But I think Elon Musk, I know some people don't like him. I mean, it is what it is, but I think Elon Musk will outdo them all.
You know what? Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off, James, but I mean, because he's not just doing, even though he is, the owner of Twitter or X, the other stuff, not obviously Twitter, but everything else that he's done is the real deal. It's the real world. It's not just a piece of code.
I completely agree. And I hate to speak about him sometimes, just because it's almost like a political thing these days.
Yeah, it is a political thing now.
But I'm a huge car guy. That's a hobby of mine. I fix cars. I build race cars for fun. So I know the intricacies of what he had to do to get Tesla to work and the genius behind it. And looking at how huge it is, he's competing with huge manufacturers, and it's working. I realize he underdelivers on promises all the time, but look what he is delivering on. So I'll leave it at that. But I
think we've blown his tire, pumped up his tires enough. All right. So what is the safety record like in the area? I mean, when tourists go there, 300,000 or 400,000 tourists go there. You know, I know the Philippines. I love the Philippines, but people will ask, what is the safety record like?
As far as safety,
tourists getting kidnapped, as far as tourists facing any kind of crime.
so I don't have any specific data offhand. Although it's one of the safer countries in Asia. It's definitely much safer than, say, anywhere in the Caribbean. So I can look up specific data on that for sure.
I think you should take a few notes. I mean, we'll obviously have a record of it, but that would be something that you will get asked. You know, what is the safety record? And the Philippines, there are parts of the Philippines where there have been some civil unrest, or there's been some guerrilla activities, there's been some religious strife between Christians and Muslims, and so you want to be equipped with that. You know, I have done some work in Belize, if you know where Belize is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And, you know, it is, I think, the only country in Central America where English is the official language. It's not Spanish, it's English. And they speak Creole, and they speak, some speak Spanish, but many of them, almost all of them, are taught and speak English. And the best thing about going to Belize City, James, is leaving Belize City. What happened in Belize? Belize is a very small country of about 300,000, maybe 350,000 citizens, and quite a few of the career criminals left Belize at one time or another and went to the United States. You know, bigger fish, right? Bigger market to whatever they were doing. When they get caught, they get put in prison sometimes for very long periods of time. But when they're let out, they're deported. So the criminal gangs in Belize City are basically American-trained, hardened criminals. They're very dangerous. They are truly dangerous. But the offshore islands are some of the most beautiful parts of the world outside of the South Pacific. They're probably the most beautiful islands anywhere except the South Pacific. But to get from the United States or Canada or Mexico to the South Pacific, that's a long way, right? I mean, it takes a long time to get to the Philippines. I'm going to Australia in December and January to visit family there, and I can tell you how long it takes to get there. I know it very well. I lived in Australia for many years. So Belize is very safe in the outer islands. You know, that's where most of the tourists head to, but Belize City, not so much. So you would need to know that.
Yeah, so to expand on that, actually, that is something that I do know. I just don't have specific data on. The northern parts of the Philippines can be hairy. These are not areas that people typically travel to. Manila, the main city where you would be landing, you know, you would want to hire a driver in advance to bring you to the smaller airports to get to the island of Palawan. Once you're on the island of Palawan, as far as I know, it's about as safe as a traveling destination can be. But I will find specific data.
I bet you it's safer than Chicago.
Yeah. I
mean, I've got friends in Chicago, and in the summer, like, you know, the July 4th weekend, they'll have like 50 or 60 shootings.
Yeah, it's
you know, so when some of my American friends say, like, my wife and I, we like to go to Merida, which is in the Yucatan in Mexico. They say, oh, Mexico's dangerous. I go, are you kidding? Merida is a beautiful little town, and it's the second safest city in North America.
Yeah, I believe it.
You know what the safest city in North America is?
I don't. I feel like you're going to shock me.
I was shocked. Well, not really shocked, but I was pleased. It's Quebec City.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's very peaceful there. So Quebec City is number one, Merida's number two. And when my American friends are saying, you know, how dangerous in Mexico is, I said, well, wait a second. Chicago, Detroit, Philadelphia, Baltimore, you know, the parts of LA. I mean, oh my gosh, please don't BS me, but certainly don't BS yourself. Yeah, so I suspect you could get some data on it, and you'll be able to do things. Also, just you know, out of interest, have you ever read a book called The Cryptonomicon?
I have not. No, I'm writing.
I'll tell you why. I'll just see if I can find it for you. Yeah, here it is.
Cryptonomicon.
I'll show it to you. Yeah. So it was written by by Neil Stephenson. This is the book here. It was written in so 1999, so more than 20 years ago, by Neil Stephenson, who was a really probably was at the time in the 90s probably the greatest science fiction writer, a young science fiction writer, certainly in the United States.
Okay.
And the reason I bring it up is the Philippines is a very big part of this book. And what Neil does is he talks about code breaking during World War II, and he mixes it with a story of a bunch of hackers in modern times. So it tells the story of setting up a data haven, sort of like crypto before there was crypto, and it talks about how the origin of the hacker movement really started in World War II. It's a fantastic book. I mean, it's this thick, so it'll take you a while to get through it. But in terms of describing the history and the culture of the Philippines, one of the things that this particular location has going for it, James, in my opinion, and I'll put this in the chat box so you can see it yourself. But one of the great things about Neil's description of the Philippines, apart from the fact that they have some of the prettiest women in the world, is that the Filipino people, at least the ones I've met, are like super awesome, great, kind, friendly. They love kids. I've been to the Philippines. I've known many people from the Philippines, and that's overwhelmingly a positive thing for this. The next question I had for you is, where do the most of these 300,000 or 400,000 tourists who are going there to the island, where are they coming from? Are they coming from Australia, from China? Where are they coming from?
So there's a lot from North America, believe it or not. I believe I have the data actually in the in the Dropbox. It's predominantly the US. There's a lot of Australians, many Europeans, and then you have a few Korean and a few Chinese now. But in El Nido itself, it's predominantly Americans, Australians, and Brits.
And Brits too. Okay, that's not cool.
Yeah.
Are there some Germans and Dutch there?
I believe there is, and I have that. I have that in my notes.
I just wanted to know out of interest. All right. So, how did you find this place? The birdhouse and the nesting table.
I was just browsing property on a local website that they have there. It would have been the equivalent to realtor.ca, something similar.
What is, I noticed, other than English, what is the local language? Tagalog?
Yeah, that's right.
Do you speak any Tagalog?
A little bit, enough to get by, but not fluently. Thankfully, everyone there speaks English, so I haven't had a problem. But being in the culture, I'll pick it up quickly because,
believe it or not, I actually have another person I coach who has an existing business in the Philippines.
Oh, interesting. Very interesting.
It's a tourism business, and I can't go into detail because of client confidentiality. But if you manage to get this under your belt, you would be the second client for me in the Philippines. Maybe third. Maybe I have three. I think I have two. So you would be the third.
Wow, very cool.
Yeah, very cool. And, I love the Philippines. It has great potential, and of course, the greatest export from the Philippines is Filipinos.
Yeah, that's right.
It's like Ireland for a couple of centuries. I think the greatest export from Ireland was the Irish.
That's right.
I think the Philippines is the same. And back when I was a young fellow, there was a joke in Italy because Italians, as you know, are great explorers, and you go to China, you'll find Marco Polo, right?
Yeah.
Or Mongolia at least. And so there was a joke when I was a young fellow that when the Americans finally got to the moon, there'd be an Italian there waiting for them. So the Philippines, the Irish, the Italians, the Portuguese, I mean, these are great explorers, and they're all over the world. You can go to Saudi Arabia, find, I wouldn't surprise me if there are 100,000 Filipinos in the Saudi.
Yeah. Actually, that's where I have cousins from the Philippines that were overseas working there. Some of them are coming back now to the Philippines.
All right. So, okay. So I've got a bit of a sense of it. All right. So, just bear with me for a minute. I'm going to boot up a couple of things here that we can look at together. So have you talked to the people in the Philippines about purchasing their operation?
I have, yes. So what I had originally done is reached out through the ad, and I got an answer back from the realtor, and I just couldn't sleep that night. I was excited about the project,
Yeah.
and I managed to find who the current owner is. He's an expat. He's an American with a Filipino wife. He put this together as a passion project. I started reading about him. He's a freelance writer, so he writes a lot of content. So I kind of understood who he is as a person,
What
and I
is
found
his
his
name?
social media.
What is his name?
Mark Villaflower,
Yeah.
Villaflor, yeah. And so I reached out to him directly, and I said, "Hey, is your place for sale? I noticed it. I was wondering if you could tell me about it. I'm interested." And him and I've had numerous conversations. Of course, with the 12-hour difference, it would be nighttime here, morning there, and he's excited to try to help change hands on it. So he will be a helping part.
Why is he selling it?
He's selling it because there's three reasons. He shut down for COVID originally. His mother got sick. He had a second child, and then his girlfriend's mother, I think, passed away. But he's got other projects on the go. So he bought 5 hectares of land close by, and he's trying to make an eco neighborhood. So a self-sustaining neighborhood that creates its own food, generates its own power, lives off the land, and could really be a model for that. And that's just taking all of his focus. So he wants to find someone he can pass the torch on to here.
And
Um,
and remind me what he's asking for it,
he's asking 50 million pesos.
which is how much in US
The
dollars?
rough conversion in Canadian dollars is divide by 40, so you'd be looking at 1.2 million.
Canadian dollars.
Correct.
All right. And and how big is this property?
It's not all that big. It's only about 0.4 acres.
0.4 of an acre?
Yeah.
So how many units are on this 0.4 of an acre?
So you can see in the center there, the rectangular building, that's the 2-story restaurant.
Yep.
The top floor being the restaurant with the deck, and underneath you'll find the kitchen and the bathrooms.
Okay.
Now, the square buildings that you see around, these are the 4 decks that have the glamping tents, and each of these decks are built with a roof covering the glamping tent as well. On your very left, that's the existing house. That's where he lives currently. And actually, in the estimation of 0.4 acres, that's not including the house. But I've been talking with him, and I said I wouldn't be interested in the deal without the house included as well. So I believe it should be closer to 0.5 or 0.6 acres.
So is this the house here, or is this the house here?
The house is the one on the left there, the first one, yeah.
So this one is the house.
Yeah.
All right. It's not really helping me. All right, forget it.
If you zoom very far in, you should be able to get a little bit more detail on what
I think I probably should be able to, but I'm gonna close and reopen it. Just give me 1 second here.
Yeah.
All right, so I'll go closer in. So this is the house, right?
Yeah, correct.
All right, I got it. And then there's 4 glamping sites, or
There's 5 glamping sites.
All right, and
with its own bathroom.
This is the restaurant.
Correct.
And then what's this over here?
That's the powerhouse. Previously, when he was operating, he was on solely generator power.
Right.
Over COVID, it is now on the grid. So that would be the the station for the backup generator. You know, there's the occasional brownouts on the island, so it makes sense to keep it.
So what is the power now? How's he generating the power?
Grid, it's on the grid.
It's on the grid, okay. And then you got some staff housing here.
Exactly.
All right. And let's go look at this. So this then would be, I guess, make it a little bigger. This would then be, what am I looking at here?
So the top right corner would be the house, the very top. I don't know if you could see it behind the tree, but you can see some white drapes there.
I'll see if I can check it out. Is it? It's not this.
Yeah, that's the house.
Yeah, that's the house. And
Yep.
then these are the glamping sites.
Yes, correct.
Okay. And then this is the restaurant.
That's correct.
Wow. It's kind of cool, eh?
It's very cool. It's got such a social following. I actually just threw some stuff in the Dropbox a minute ago that have clearer photos and an idea of what sold me on this place.
Okay, what sold you on this place?
It's already it's almost turnkey. It's got a huge social following. It's got 18,000 followers on Facebook, I believe 14,000 on Instagram. The restaurant at one time was #1 on TripAdvisor. I believe now it's fallen down to #2 or 3, even though it's not operating. It's got articles written on it in CNN, Esquire. Funny enough, the restaurant isn't even open this year, and somehow it managed to get the #1 spot for restaurant with the nicest view in the Philippines. And there's comments under all of the photos asking, when are you reopening? When are you reopening? We want to come back, or
Yeah.
not
Okay.
our shirt.
And in terms of expansion possibilities, you think there might be room for 1 or 2 more glamping spots, correct?
I think if we get creative with it, I work in construction, so I have quite a talent for being creative. It's hard to tell from the site plan because there's so much elevation change. And that's one of those things where I need to get my boots on the ground or get a little
sure.
video.
Maybe there's the possibility of adding a couple more.
I would,
Hang on a second. I wanted to show you what clients of mine have done. Are you familiar with Whispering Springs?
I am, yes. Yeah.
And I'll just share with you, just because we're recording and it'll be on the record then. This is one of the things that they have done fairly recently. They've added these tree houses to their offerings, right? So if you have, a lot of verticality, and you already call this place, or it's already called, the Birdhouse, so it's not very far to go from Birdhouse to Treehouse, right?
Yeah, that's correct. And that's kind of what I was thinking. You know what as well, given that it has elevation change, that helps, because now all of the glamping sites have a view of they've got a view of the bay, they've got a view of the beach.
Exactly. And these things have been incredibly successful. I'll just make it a little bigger here for you. I mean, you can go from one treehouse to another. Do you know what they charge at Whispering Springs? Mind you, it's closer to Toronto. Do you know what they charge a night per person?
I'm not sure, but I'm willing to make a guess.
No one guess.
Per person or per tent,
yeah.
right? Because I imagine it would be 2 people in a tent. I don't know, maybe $250 per person.
Yeah, I would have guessed 250 or 300. It's $600 per person per night.
Okay.
Does that blow your mind?
It does, but it doesn't at the same time, because based on my market research and what the Birdhouse has been, charging. Bear in mind, these are tents, right? And the average cost per night is around $220. Now, you know how cheap it is in the Philippines. Down the road, you can get a luxury resort room for $160, yet the occupancy still stays at 93% at this place. People just want the experience of it, and especially it's very Instagram culture, right?
Yeah. And well, just to be clear though, let's go over to their site. the tree houses are, $600 per person per night, but you can also get these very nice glamping tents, which are not that different from what you saw at the Birdhouse, right?
That's
And
right.
these would cost a little bit less, and what it's interesting what they did. I'm just trying to give you a sort of sense of what's possible with the operations of it. What they started out doing, have you got a calculator there?
I do. Yep.
Yeah, boot it up or on your phone or whatever.
Yep.
So they have now, including the tree houses, they have 24 glamping sites here. So it's not a huge number, right? I mean, it's more than the Birdhouse, but it's not 100. It's 24. And they're only open because Canadian weather is pretty much crap for 6 or 8 months a year. They're only open from sort of late May until sometime in September. They're probably closing about now. So let's say they're open for, I'll just make up a number, 17 weeks. All right. And so take this number, 24 times 17 times 7. How much, what do you get?
We're at 2,856.
All right. So to keep Whispering Springs fully occupied, they had to make 2,800. They had to sell 2,800 nights every year. That's quite a few nights to sell. Yeah. But what they found was that the demand for special events, which I saw in your email, and weddings was off the charts. And so what they have done is they've changed their model now. You can't rent a night here or 2 or 3 nights here. You have to rent the entire resort for a minimum of 1 week. Mm-hmm. All right. And so they've reduced the need to do one to many. In other words, to do 2,800 reservations. They've reduced it now to really basically needing 17 reservations. And that in marketing terms is called going from one to many to one to a few. Mm-hmm. It's a heck of a lot easier, as it turns out, to manage and to sell 17 individual sales than it is to sell 2,800. You understand? I think they're very, very, very smart. And let's just do some numbers as well. What does it cost for a week? So take 24, do this on your calculator, 24 glamping sites times 2, double occupancy, that's 48. And you multiply it by 600 and then multiply that by 7. What do you get?
201,600.
Right. So what they do, and there's plenty of rich people. I'm not suggesting that you would do this in the Philippines, but I'm just trying to give you a sense of what is going on in the glamping world today. What's going on in the glamping world today is the demand for larger groups, families traveling together is that's where the action is. All right. And what I mean by that is there are plenty of people in Toronto for whom spending $200,000 to have all their buddies come and enjoy a special event or enjoy a wedding or whatever it is like you and me going out and getting a McCafe.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, probably you and I can afford a McCafe. Could we afford $201,000 to entertain our buddies for a week? Maybe not. But there are plenty of people in Toronto who can. It's the only city in Canada that really has American style money.
Yeah.
I mean, the American tech people, the tech bros, they spend $201,000, that's like half a Maserati or something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, you're a race car guy, so you would know that better than me. But the tech bros, they think nothing of dropping 201, and that's Canadian pesos as opposed to U.S. dollars, right?
That's right. That's right.
So they get people from New York State and from other parts. They get people from Michigan and elsewhere who have real unbelievable money, and they think $201,000 is in Canadian dollars is not very much. So they've that means in 17 weeks they get $3.4 million or $3.5 million in revenues, and that's just the base, and then there's services on top of that, right?
Right.
So let's talk about what a deal might look like. All right, he's asking 1.2 million Canadian. So let's write this down, James, just for the heck of it. Let's say you can arrange a 70% loan to value mortgage. All right.
Okay.
Let's assume that. So out of the 1.2 million that you need, that's local. You need, that's 14. That's $840,000 mortgage, right?
Yep.
And if you do your numbers again, so subtract 840,000 from 1.2 million, what do you get?
We're at 360,000.
300 and what?
60,000.
Yeah, 360. And then there's probably some closing costs. I mean, you'll have some legal costs, and maybe there's some local taxes that you have to pay. And then you have to have a startup budget, because the place will need repairs and maintenance and all kinds of things. You'll need a startup, and you'll need some working capital, right? Do you understand?
Yep.
Because it's not just getting this deal closed, it's getting it restarted, getting it staffed up, and making sure you have enough money to tide you over, because it usually takes a year or two, sometimes 3 years, to get the thing going great guns. Most people think I'll open and I'll be booming right away. Let's hope that's true, but it may not be. So you need some working capital. So what do you think you need for startup to bring the buildings back, to make sure they don't leak, and that there's mosquito netting and whatever else you need?
So I spoke with the current owner, and this is stuff I have to verify in person. He figures about 20,000 max to make everything.
So
Sure.
let's assume it's 100,000, because the owner is not necessarily reliable in this case. Okay,
Yeah, I agree. I just as an example, the construction costs for my cousin's last house in the Philippines worked out to be about $50,000 Canadian.
Yeah, I know it goes a lot further, but let's not underestimate, because everything that can go wrong will go wrong. Guaranteed. Right, so we'll assume. And how much working capital will you need to sustain yourself over at least a year? Probably 150 grand, just in case.
Yep.
Because everything that can go wrong will go wrong. So if you add 150,000 and 100,000 at 360, what do you get?
Oh yeah, we're up to 610.
Yeah, and then 610 plus some closing costs. All right.
Yeah.
All right. So let's say you need 650,000 in equity. Okay.
Okay.
Do you have any friends that have 650,000 bucks?
I might be able to raise that.
I think you probably could. So there's a number of ways that you could raise it. Okay. So let's walk it through. Can you personally put up, say, $10,000? Do you have $10,000?
Sure. Yeah.
Do you have 20,000? I'm just asking.
Yep.
Well, what is the amount of equity that you could put in?
Let's say 100,000.
Well, that's pretty good, James. So let's say I'm going to put James down. James's equity, I'm going to put his equity down as 75,000. Okay.
Okay.
Don't want to put your last dollar in. You might need it, because you might need to feed yourself or something. By the way, are you a married person?
I'm not. I live with my girlfriend though.
Okay. Well, do you mind if I ask her name?
Her name's Tatiana.
Tatiana?
Yeah.
Beautiful. Tatiana. That's the girlfriend. And what does she think of this?
She's willing to make the move there if we have to.
She probably doesn't like the cold weather either.
She does not. No.
All right.
She's from El Salvador.
So let's say James can put in 75,000. Okay.
Yep.
And I'm going to call them the friends. Okay, we'll just call them the friends. They're going to put in. Just give me a second here. They're going to put in $50,000 of equity. Okay.
Yeah.
You writing it down too?
I am.
So now you have a total of $125,000 in equity. You with me on that?
Yeah.
Which means that James, with his 75,000, owns 60% of this project, and the friends own 40%. Okay.
Yep.
But wait a second. We said you need 650, so you're short. I'll do the numbers myself. 650 minus 125. You're short $525,000. You with me on that?
Yeah.
Okay. Aha. So here's where the smart thing comes in, which is your friends, they're investing $150,000 to own 40% of the project, and then they're lending the project $525,000.
Okay.
Do you understand?
Kind of.
All right.
I think.
So let's just make 100% sure that you understand. Let's say you and I were to buy a duplex together, and we need $200,000 of cash.
Yeah.
To buy it. And I'm a poor professor, and I say, holy smokes, James, I only got 50 grand.
Mm-hmm.
James is a rich dude. He says, I can put in the whole 200,000. Well, wait a second. I want to own part of this too. You know, I found the duplex. I'm going to manage it. I'm going to do all the work. So how about I put in $50,000 and you put in, I don't know, 35,000. So we now got 85,000. So we're splitting the equity. I'm going to have a majority of the equity and you're going to have a minority. But I found the place and I'm going to run it. I'm going to manage it, blah, blah, blah. So I should have a bigger share. And you agree. Yeah. Then you say to me, well, yeah, okay, that's great, Bruce, but where's the other $115,000 coming from? Well, Mr. Rich Dude, James MacKinnon, is loaning the project the extra $115,000. It's just debt.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, it's just debt. I call this financing. I call this Mad River financing. All right, write that down. Mad River, 2 words, financing. The reason I call it Mad River, you can't even look it up because I just made it up. The reason that I call it Mad River financing is the very first time I used this technique was in Mad River. I think it was in Vermont or somewhere. And it was a ski resort. And one of my students actually was going to buy a property in Mad River, and it was a Boston Pizza, and he needed about $750,000 to open the Boston Pizza, and he had about the same amount of money as you, $75,000 or $100,000, and he had some investors who would put in the rest, but they were going to end up owning like 90% of it. And he was going to end up owning 10%. I said to my student, I've forgotten his name now. It's a long time ago, and I said to him, you're going to do all the work. You found the place. You're going to actually manage the place. You're going to do all the work. You're going to own 10% of this thing. That's ridiculous. Who would do that? Maybe it was 12%. It wasn't very much. So what we did was, in that case, there were just 2 outside investors, and they ended up being 1/3 owners each, right? So the rich dudes, the investors, they just loaned the project the money, and it's not a mortgage. It's just like a promissory note.
Yeah.
You ever see Dumb and Dumber, the movie?
Yeah.
You remember what that briefcase had a bunch of IOUs at the end of the film?
Yeah, that's right.
A promissory note is just like an IOU.
Yep. Okay.
So it doesn't show up on the property. It's not a mortgage debt. It's just an IOU. So you're going to form a company. The company is going to buy this place, the Birdhouse and the nesting place, or whatever it's called, the restaurant. And you're going to own 60% of it. Your friends are going to own 40% of it, and your friends are going to loan. It'll be just corporate debt. And typically, what we do is we give them, 8% on their money. It's interest, 8% interest. We ask for a 5-year term, and we capitalize the interest. Do you know what that means?
I do. Yeah.
It means that it's paid at the end.
Yeah.
Because you can't afford 8% interest on $525,000 for every month. It'll drown you, right? You pay it at the end, right? So hopefully in the next 5 years it becomes a very profitable operation again. You save up your pennies, and at the end of 5 years you pay them back. But often what people do at the end of 5 years is they simply remortgage, and they refinance it, and they pay them back that way. So it's not actually coming out of your jeans.
Yeah.
You understand?
I do. Yeah.
So this is a very, very simple way to set things up. And what I would suggest you do is maybe you could offer the owner a little bit less than 1.25 million. Maybe you could get it for 1.15. Maybe you could ask, right?
Yeah. So to add to that, I haven't got into negotiations yet, but I asked if he currently has a mortgage on the place. He does not. He owns it outright. I was, trying to do some sort of a VTB or something for the first year so I can get it operating.
What do you say to that?
Well, he doesn't own, he doesn't have a mortgage on the place. What he said he's willing to do is take a sizable deposit. I got excited. I thought that meant 20%. I realize now he's looking at 60%. This is without negotiations. I figure I can get that down to 50% as a sizable deposit.
Yeah.
And then the remainder in a year's time.
Yeah, that's good. So I think that's great. But what I'd like you to do is put together a deal points memo. Just send me an email, okay? And in the email, you're going to say, okay, purchase price 1.15 million. Let's assume you can get it for 1.15 million. The deposit with the agreement would be, say, $25,000, right? The first deposit. Just call it the first deposit, $25,000 to tie it up. But that goes to a lawyer in trust, not to him.
Yeah.
Okay, because you don't know this guy. He might just take your money and say thank you very much and sell it to somebody else. Then you have to sue him in the Philippines. Good luck.
Yeah.
All right, so it's going to go to a lawyer in trust. Then there's going to be a period of due diligence, and you're going to need 60 days to do that from the date of the agreement. And you can extend that for an additional 45 days with an increase that is a second deposit, also going in trust, of 25,000. Okay. So the first deposit is 25 grand. You've tied it up for 60 days. If you need to extend for another 45 days, you can, just in case it takes you that long. But that deposit also goes in trust. Okay.
Okay.
All right. On closing, on completion, you'll pay, including the first two deposits, you'll pay 50%, right?
Yeah.
And then the seller take back or the vendor take back should be for 18 months. You're going to need that. A year goes by faster than as I get older, James, it goes by really fast. All right. So you say to him, look, I need 18 months and I'll give you 8% on your money paid at the end of the mortgage, right?
8%.
The conditions will be, obviously, building inspection, finance, water and sewer and utility, investigations, right? Environmental, just in case there's any spills on the property, you don't want to be held responsible. And you need a legal condition as well, because you're going to need to have a Philippine attorney, in Ottawa. Where are you based out? Are you in Ottawa?
I am in Ottawa, yeah.
Yeah, so an Ottawa attorney will say, what the heck? I don't know anything about the Philippines. So you might have a real estate attorney here in Ottawa, but he or she is going to say, I don't know nothing about it. They're afraid of their own shadow these days. So you're going to need a legal condition so that you'll have a Philippine lawyer review it.
Okay.
The other condition that you should have in there, I think, is an insurance condition. You want to make sure you can get this thing insured. Are there cyclones that hit this area?
No. So this being on the west side of the island, it's pretty well protected from hurricanes. I
don't think they call them hurricanes in the Philippines. They call them cyclones.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I'm using North American jargon, but they typically go from east to west. So this being on that side of the island, it's a bad rainfall.
You need an insurance condition because you don't want to spend $1.2 million or 1.15 or whatever it is. And okay. The other thing that you need in the agreement, and I want you to write all this in an email. I'll review it, okay? But you're going to have to do the writing. I don't want to do any more.
I've got it written out here. Yeah.
Okay, but another thing you need is from the moment that from the date of execution of an agreement of purchase and sale, from that date forward, you have the right to market the place as well.
Okay.
All right, because you want to take some bookings. All right. So you put it right in the email to me, and when you talk to, what was his first name again? The owner?
Mark.
Say it again.
Mark.
Mark. Yeah, thank you. Is it Mark with a K or with a C?
With a K.
All right, Mark is the owner. I'll write it down so I don't forget. So the moment that you know, even while it's a conditional period, you can do some marketing, because let's say you have you know, I don't know, 5 of these things and whatever, and you can book it up for 6 months next year and put, you know, a couple of $100,000 of cash in an account for advanced bookings. That'd be freaking great.
Yeah.
All right. So you want to be at the right, and you have to have that in the agreement. You have to, because if you don't, you can't market something you don't own. But if you have the permission of the owner, you can.
Okay, great.
We're all clear on this, right?
Yes.
All right. So this is a great opportunity. Now, the other thing in it, a few more in the deal points memo, a few more things. One, Mark agrees to provide free consulting services from time to time for the first 2 years after closing at no cost to the buyer. All right. Buyer and seller acting reasonably. So you can't ask them for 40 hours a week, but if you needed, you know, if you have a question you can't answer, you know, an hour here and an hour there, that's what we're talking about. So over the next 2 years, maybe you get 20 or 30 hours of his time, right? So it's maybe a week's work over 2 years. That's reasonable. So buyer and seller acting reasonably, Mark will agree to provide consulting services at no charge to the buyer, you, for 2 years, just in case you get stuck. Right? You just, you know, now, you said that he's bought a property not far away. Is he going into competition with you?
He's not. No. He's
What?
building. Yep. So this is more, you know, hospitality and high-end hospitality. He's building a sustainable agri-hood, as he calls it.
I know what an agri-hood is.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think you should say that he agreed in this deal points memo, he agrees not to directly compete with the Birdhouse within, you know, 40 kilometers of the site. I mean, if he's 100 kilometers away, there's nothing you can do about that. And that is, he agrees to not compete in terms of glamping within 40 kilometers of the site for 2 years. After that, if he competes with you, so be it. It probably wouldn't hurt you anyway. Right. So it's like a non-compete, if you understand that.
Yeah.
All right. You don't want to give him 1.1 or $1.2 million, and then he opens up right next to it and he, you know, he stamps you out.
Right.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. So that's the deal points memo. You write it in an email. I'll review it. And then what you would do after I've reviewed it is you do a Zoom call with Mark?
So we've been mainly doing phone conversations just because the internet connection where he has been, but he's available to do the Zoom if
yeah. So just because when you should do it directly with him, you know, you and Mark should just talk. So you don't need me, you don't need the realtor. You just say, Mark, don't send him the deal points memo. Do not send it to him. Once I reviewed it, say, Mark, I want you to jump on a call with me. And I've got some ideas and I want to run them by you. Okay.
Yep.
Because if you send it to him, there'll be some things in there that he will react badly to. And he'll go, oh, fuck this guy's a fucking idiot. Fuck this. You know, people are irrational. I mean, they are. I mean, human beings are irrational. Breaking news, right? We kill each other at an incredible rate around the planet, and we do incredibly stupid things. And we've been doing that for probably 5 or 6 million years, and we continue to be stupid. But so if you just send them your deal points memo, it'll just cause a fuss, and you won't get anywhere. So say, look, I've got some ideas. I'm serious about it. I've hired a coach, which you have, you know, me, and I've got some investors. I would put that in an email to him. You have his email address, I assume.
I do, yeah.
Yeah. So look, I've hired a coach and I've got some investors. We're interested. Even my girlfriend's interested. Can you jump on a Zoom call with me? I've got some ideas. Let's go through them together. And then what you say when you talk through the deal points memo, you don't tell them this is the way it is. take it or leave it. That's not the way to do it. I know you know that. You say, look, these are some ideas, and let's go through them, and you can tell me what you think as we go through them. All right?
Okay.
All right. And the other thing that should go in the deal points memo is that you and Tatiana have the right to visit and hopefully stay on site for a week.
Okay.
All right, or 10 days. Make it 10 days. Right? So you have the right to come and visit him. And you and Tatiana, it's going to be cold in Ottawa in no time. You and Tatiana should go there for 10 days.
Yeah.
And you should, hopefully live on site, even if it's just camping, right? And be his guest. I mean, there's a house, he lives in that house, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think you should, at no cost, right? You'll pay your own airfare, but you can be on site for 10 days, spend 10 days with him, reviewing everything. All right. And that's after we have a conditional deal.
Okay.
All right. So we'll do a conditional deal, but during that 60-day period, you and Tatiana, if she's willing, you two guys should go, and you'll spend 10 days there and figure out whether you really want to do this or not. And in that deal points memo, I mean, how many friends are we talking about? 2, 3, 10 who are helping you with this money?
Probably 2 to 3.
All right. And you say, in addition, on the site visit, you can bring 2 or 3 other couples.
Okay.
And of course, they'll pay their own way. You'll pay for your own food, your own beverages, but the cost of staying at the location will be 0. Do you understand?
I do.
So it won't cost him anything, but at the same time, I don't want you to pay $225 a night for 4 couples, right? That's not fair. You're buying the place.
Yeah.
All right. And so we'll, assuming that he's on site, once you've talked to him, we'll paper the deal. You'll have a conditional deal. You and a bunch of, and you'll have a blast, by the way. You'll have a great time.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, now something else that you would do, you don't have to tell, this doesn't go in the deal points memo, but draw a line under that. Something else you will do with his help, once you have signed this deal, don't tell him this now, is that you will probably sell that restaurant.
Okay.
All right. You'll find an operator who wants to buy the restaurant. You'll own the land and you'll own the building, but you'll sell the restaurant. In all likelihood, you probably should not be in the restaurant business.
I agree.
All right. That is a very, very time consuming, all in business, right? I mean, the restaurant owns you, not the other way around. And you don't know the local culture, you don't know the local food, you don't know the local suppliers. Part of your financing will be to sell that restaurant, get a little bit of cash for it, and get a lease. You understand that? But don't put in the deal points memo. Just remember that. So when you're down there, once you've got the agreement, you say, Mark, we're going to find somebody, hopefully in the next few weeks, who wants to buy that restaurant, even if it's only $20,000. Buy the restaurant, reopen it, and pay you a lease. Do you know how to do a triple net lease?
I do. Yeah. Yeah, I've done them before.
You're a genius. All right, but write down there that you'll sell the restaurant for, I don't know, $20,000, and you'll do a triple net lease so that the food services are taken care of, and the restaurant has the rights for food and beverage at the restaurant, but also throughout the compound.
Okay.
Okay, and in the triple net lease, you will ask also for a percentage rent. Do you know what that is?
No.
Okay, so what that means is you'll ask for a percentage of their sales.
Okay.
In other words, they're paying their base rent plus their operating costs, plus if they're property taxes, their property taxes, plus their utilities, operating expenses. That's what triple net means. Operating expenses, property tax, or utilities, but they also pay a percentage. So that if the resort is full and you get some, high rollers from the United States, and they are ordering 1,000 bottles of champagne, you know, spending $10,000 on liquor in a week, you get, say, 8% of that. Write down 8%. That's typical, right? And it could be higher than 8%. It might be as high as 12 or 15%. I don't know yet, but it's in the range of 8, 12, or 15%. And that's very, very important for you. It's money for nothing. You understand?
Can I just ask a quick question?
Sure.
How that would affect the you know, as for financing the value of the business, because there's actually more revenue generated from the restaurant than there is for the glamping itself.
Right. That's why the percentage rent is important. Maybe the percentage rent is going to be 35%.
Okay.
But,
so just augment that to make the deal make sense,
yeah.
more or less.
So let me explain something to you. That's a great question you just asked. Maybe it's 35%. Maybe it's more than that. Let me tell you something about the Ottawa Senators. Back when I was new to the National Hockey League, and we were thinking about building the Palladium, which is now called Canadian Tire Center, I talked to Ron Corey, who was the president of the Montreal Canadiens, and they were thinking about building a new building, which is now the Bell Center. Or maybe, I don't know if they call it the Bell Center anymore, but anyway, it's a new arena in Montreal. And I asked Ron, are you going to do the food and beverage yourself? Oh, he said, yes, we're going to do it, food and beverage ourselves. You know, he had that strong French accent. And I said, oh, okay. Oh yeah, we make money that way. I said, okay. What about you, Bruce? I said, well, I don't know anything about serving beer and hot dogs. I don't know if I'm gonna want to run the food and beverage services at the Palladium, now the Canadian Tire Center. So he went ahead and set up his own food and beverage division, which they already had anyway at the Forum, now at the Bell Center. And after a year, I asked him how his margins were. Oh, they're great, Bruce. 27%. Okay, that was his margin. We hired a group out of New York called Ogden Corporation, who were huge in the arena management business. We got 52 cents of every dollar for every beer, hot dog, nachos, pizza, whatever. We got 52 cents of every dollar. The Montreal Canadiens were at 27%. They had to do all the work, and they had to do all the hiring, and they had to find all the, you know, the beer and the hot dogs and the popcorn and the pizza and everything else. And then there's the risk, because if you get some bad hot dogs and you poison people, that's a very serious problem. You know, and plus on top of that, think about the amount of work. We were getting almost twice as much money. Now, I didn't tell Ron that, because one of the things you don't want to do is you don't want to rub it into people, right? But what I learned from that, James, is that you stick to what you're good at, and you define what your core competencies are, and everything else you contract out. So at the Canadian Tire Center, we contracted out parking, cleaning, security, food and beverage. But what we didn't contract out was season ticket sales, suite sales, sponsorship, signage. We did all of that because all of those things are being close to your customer facing, right? Whether it's a season ticket holder or a corporation. So same thing here. It's very similar. You're in the entertainment business. Glamping is entertainment too. Hockey is entertainment. Having Madonna come give a concert, Katy Perry gives a concert, Taylor Swift gives a concert. You're in the entertainment business, but that's the real business you're in. You're not in the business of cleaning. You're, in my opinion, okay. I mean, I'm just here as your coach and hopefully as a friend, James. And you're the decision maker, but I actually know something about this business, right? I got lots of clients in the States and Canada and a few in the Philippines, as I mentioned. Okay. So you define what your core competencies are. In my opinion, it's the social media, it's the booking, it's the client-facing stuff. That's where you will make all your money and where you should focus, in my opinion, your time. Cleaning services, food and beverage services, repairs and maintenance, all the other stuff. You know, there are plenty of people in the Philippines who have skills to do that. Okay, that's my opinion. And so you want to sit back, smoke a cigar, drink a little rum, and let the food and beverage guys run around and maybe the 8, 10, 12%, 15% was too low. Maybe it is 35%. Maybe you can get 52 cents of every dollar like the Sens get from today it's not Ogden anymore, it's Aramar. But I'll bet you it's over 50% because I set that up, 20 plus years ago.
Wow. Okay.
Make sense?
It does. Yep. Yeah.
All right. So you've got a little bit of homework to do. Do your deal points memo, send it to me, then get on a call. And if you want some more coaching from me, I'd be happy to help you through this process.
Certainly. Well, I appreciate it. Do you have time for 2 quick questions?
Yes, I do.
The one question being, given that a lot of the value of this place is the business more so than the cost of the land and the buildings, does it make sense when I go to investors to approach it maybe with like a mezzanine style financing where they can convert to shares for their protection? Like how do I attract someone to lend money to something
because you think it through. You haven't thought it through. Think it through. That's okay. Listen, I've been doing this for a long time. Why the hell should you know all this stuff because you're just new to it today? But you didn't think it through, James, and that's no fault of yours. Think about it this way. Once their $525,000 is repaid in 5 years, they own 40% of this business for 50 grand.
Mm.
That is a fantastic deal.
I don't mean the initial investors, but the lenders themselves.
What lender are you talking about?
When I go to refinance for to cover the whole 1.15.
Don't worry about that. That's fine. That could be 18 months to 5 years out. Don't worry about that. There'll be plenty of you have to make this a success, right? I mean, if it's a failure, you're going to go broke.
Yeah.
You won't be able to
get the place operating and worry about that later.
You've got 18 months to pay off the landowner, and you've got 5 years to pay off your friends. And there'll be plenty of, if it's a success, there'll be people throwing money at you to lend money to. If it's a failure, you're going to have to bankrupt.
Okay.
It is what it is. If we get hit with another pandemic, hopefully it's once in 100 years, and I won't be around, and you won't be around either. It doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
Okay. What was the next question?
No, you know what? That simplified everything. So
all right. Well, listen, it is all new to you. The reason I recorded this, I'll put it on YouTube. I'll send you the replay. Is this will help you? You probably should watch it one more time.
Yep.
And work on your deal points memo. And the only kind of coaching I do, James, is with people who want to do stuff, not people who want to just talk about it. So I suspect you and Tatiana, with a little bit of coaching from me, can do this. All right.
Yeah. Sounds good.
All right. See ya.
Appreciate it.